Today's video is going to be about the process known as RMA, Return Merchandise Authorization, and getting a graphics card that was faulty, fixed, and replaced. And actually, this topic might be a little bit rare. I don't really see many people talking about it, but also I don't really see any videos on it on the internet. So I thought I'd just make a video explaining my whole process here with the RMA of this RTX 4080 that I bought off a used PC parts hunt. And then after a couple of months, I sold it in a PC, and then the person started saying the problems got progressively worse to the point where the system would just randomly shut off. And then I took it back to the studio here and did some thorough tests on it. And indeed, it would just shut off after a couple of hours sometimes. But then after it shut off after about 2 hours, it then became relatively quickly for it to shut off again after 15 minutes. And then also there was a bad display port after this happened. So it was a really weird issue that I had with this RTX 4080, but regardless, it was faulty and it was still under warranty. Now, when I bought this card, I made sure, especially whenever I'm buying something over a couple of $100s, I make sure there's a receipt with that, and there's some kind of, or if it's a newer card and it's still under warranty, I make sure I get the receipt so that if something does go wrong, I can then deal with this RMA process myself. And I have had this happen once before with another graphics card a few years ago, but this time around, I thought I'd make a video detailing, I guess, how good the process was, in that the store that I dealt with, Umart, they had a really good process for it. There are some quirks, however, and there are some things to be aware of, especially if you're in Australia and you do have a problem with a product and you want to get it returned, especially even after that, you buy it off the second-hand market. But we'll go through this whole step-by-step process in today's video, right after today's video sponsor. Never pay full price for Windows 10 or 11 again. With today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, you can get activated for as little as $15 using that coupon BFTYC. Links in description below. Welcome back to Tech Yes City, and what we've got here is a brand new RTX 4080 that's been replaced by MSI. This is their Suprim Extreme model, Suprim X, and I'm very glad that I got a new card, because I know sometimes I've heard of stories, actually heard of quite a few stories, where people send off a faulty product and then they just get a faulty product back, and it can take them months to get a actual replacement or to get something fixed, even though their product is under warranty. And usually if this starts to drag on, there are authorities in your country that you can follow up with independently of either the retailer or the board maker to then make action happen. In Australia, I believe it's the ACCC if you cannot resolve the issue with either the retailer or the board partner. But in this case, I had a very good experience. And the funny thing is, it's an MSI card, which if you guys have seen at Tech Yes City, I'm very critical of MSI with some of the stuff that they've done, not just to me personally, but some of the products that they've made over the past few years where I thought they've done questionable things. But this time around, I'd say their RMA process was very straightforward. Basically, what happened was I had the faulty card, as I explained in the intro. What was wrong with it? I even got video footage of the PC shutting off, and it actually took me a long time to get this footage because of how initially rare it was, and my camera, when I was recording it, initially it would overheat after an hour and a half of recording. So I was thankful that I did get that snippet of when it was shutting down so I could show you guys as well. But also, when I got this card back, having a brand new replacement with a different serial number on it, and also I can just tell because I clean parts a lot that this is a brand new card. There was some little blemishes on the cooler itself that are now gone. So MSI just replaced the whole card. So basically there must have been something seriously wrong with the GPU for it to get a replacement. Now, with the RTX 4080 and 4090s, they're a significant investment, and the person that I sold the PC to, I ended up giving them a full gaming GPU in the meantime, something a little bit slower, but they're using that, and now they've got their replacement ready to go. I can put that back in, and they should be having a good gaming experience. Though here's where the process started for me. Basically, I had the problem, the card was faulty. I then took it into where the person that I bought it off on the secondhand market bought it from. And so in this case, they bought it from a retailer called Umart. and they're one of the biggest PC parts retailers in Australia here, and their warranty cycle is such that you go in, you tell them that the part has the problem, they will then send it off to the manufacturer for you, and then if there's a problem, you will then get that problem fixed and the card will come back and you go pick it up to the store. The problem here is buying off the secondhand market, legally the Umart team and the people there, they're only allowed to contact the email address on the registered account that bought the product, because they can't verify that I bought this product off the secondhand market. Even though I showed video footage of me buying it on my parts hunt, they said technically yes, but technically no. So I was like, look, here's the proof that I bought it off the guy. It's actually mine now. So, I mean, if you can get around this hurdle in your country with showing them video proof of you changing ownership, then I don't know, but I guess there's a bit of extra steps there, because then you got to verify that that's the person who owned the card and then they sold it to you. So I guess there was a bit of a hurdles there. But anyway, bottom line is I had to go and email the person's account on the file and tell them, hey, look, the card's faulty. I've taken it into Umart. Please don't go and collect the card, because now it's my card. I want to go collect that when it's ready and the problem has been fixed. And in this case, they say it could be anywhere from usually 2 to 6 weeks. And so this is the biggest downside of an RMA, is that you can be left without a GPU, especially if it's a high-end gaming graphics card like the RTX 4080. You can be left without that and got downtime that you can't really do anything about unless you go out and buy a real cheap GPU as a filler for the meantime. They're basically, with the warranty, take it into the retailer. They'll then go ship it off to the manufacturer for you on your behalf, and they'll also notify you when it comes back in and it's ready to be picked up. Now, of course, that's the simple process. The extra layer there for the secondhand market is that you've got to do what I just said before. You've got to deal with that original party that purchased the product to be able to get the product returned to you. And in this case, they just told me at the store, look, come back in and check on the card in, say, around 2 to 4 weeks. And so I did that. After a month, I came back and I checked in on the graphics card, and they said, yep, it's ready to go. Here it is. And they gave me the card, and it was all good to go. Though the warranty process on Umart's side, them taking the card in and doing all the postage and sending it off for you, and then notifying you when it's back in stock, that's really good. It makes me feel good about recommending Umart here in Australia to local Aussies, but also MSI in just sending out a brand new card. That was actually a really surprising thing. I thought the card would perhaps be fixed in Taiwan, which they say that's where the 6-week delay can come from with RMAs, because they get sent back to Taiwan. They then get fixed at their repair centers, and then they get sent back to you, and then you, I guess, get the card and you have to fix it. But in this case, the card is a brand new sample, so we're good to go. We're ready to rock and roll. And a lot of these graphics cards, these higher end models, they will have a 3 to 4 year warranty. So do keep your receipt. Always keep your receipt when you're buying anything that's relatively expensive. So that right there is the easy process. That's how it should go. But from what I heard, I actually spoke to the retailer, and I've spoken to a few other retailers in Australia here. The RMA process can be sometimes even better, or it can be sometimes worse. And in this case, I've heard of, recently I heard of an RTX 3070, a faulty one, coming in to another retailer, and them getting sent an RTX 4070 back. So because their RTX 3070, they bought it, they didn't have a straight replacement for it. They actually had to replace it with something better or the same. And so they only had a 4070 to replace it with. So the person who bought that 3070 actually got a free upgrade. So that's rare, but sometimes that can happen in your favor. Though what about when things go bad? And this is where I can't actually say the name of the manufacturer in Australia, because I can't verify that this has actually happened. But you guys are welcome to go in the comments section and have a guess who it is. But anyway, there's been a manufacturer where I've heard 2 different accounts now from actually 2 different retailers, where there was a motherboard, a Z490 motherboard, a particular model, where the people would buy this particular model and they would put 2 32GB RAM sticks in, and it just would not post. It would only work with one of the sticks, and the board essentially just would not work with 64 gigabytes of memory, flat out. Doesn't matter what memory you tried, the board was essentially faulty from the get-go. It wasn't doing what it said it would do on the box. So the said person would go and try and get it RMA'd, and they'd just send them back the same motherboard, and the problem would still exist. And so this is with a particular brand, with a particular Z490 mini RTX board with only 2 slots, and all the other makers, they work fine with 64 gigabytes of RAM. The second example I've heard of is an RTX 3080. The particular person sent it back to the retailer, and the retailer, who's my friend, told me about this process. They said that they sent it back to the company. The company then just sent them back the same card. And it was like, what is going on here? Clearly there was a problem where the screen would flicker. Sometimes it was just faulty in general. And the person confirmed that at the shop. And they sent that back to the board partner, and they just completely, I guess, ignored it and sent them back a faulty product. And so this is the same brand that I've heard about this in Australia. So that's some of the worst stories I've heard. You guys please let me know in the comments some of your horror stories when it comes to RMAs. And do share them, so if people are having problems, they can perhaps relate in the comments and get some guidance going forward. But the bottom line is, if you go to a store that has a good customer service, perhaps if you're having an ongoing issue, then they can help you out, perhaps loaning you some secondhand parts or just loaning you something to get by in the meantime. Though in terms of the RTX 4080 and 4090, I do feel these coolers are just so big that's perhaps, as I've seen board repairers talk about, it's going to be putting pressure on these cards over time. So if you do have one of these cards and it is sitting horizontally, definitely use a GPU support bracket on the end of the card. I think that's something that you have to do. I always do it ever since I saw the size of these things and I saw the GPU sag on them. I was thinking, well, that could be a problem over time. But in the case of this card here, I guess it's another fault that's gone mainly with the display port. Perhaps something happened there. I'm just not sure. But these faulty parts, they do come up from time to time. But usually in my history with the faulty parts, it's usually on the stuff that uses quite a bit more power. And I guess more components on board, the more chances something can go wrong. Anyways, with all that aside, we've got the question of the day here, which comes from Abdul Aztisaquit 6672, and they ask, I have a HP Z440. Its power supply has 2 6-pin connectors. How should I connect with 8-pin required GPU? Please, please, please guide me. So for this question here, it's an easy fix, and that would be just to get a 2 PCIe 6-pin to 8-pin adapter. These are usually relatively cheap on places like AliExpress. You can get them for a couple of bucks. That would be the best way to solve your problem. And if it's maybe an RX 470 or an RX 480 or something like that, you can usually just plug in the 6-pin without the 8-pin, and it works. I mean, if you're really strapped and you cannot afford like a couple of bucks, there is another way, and that is you can use those sense pins and short them to metal. This is like real ghetto. I have tested this in the past out of curiosity, and it has worked absolutely fine. But we're not going to go there. I'm not going to show that on any video because it's really it's too ghetto. Anyhow, hope that answers that question. And with that aside, I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. And if you stayed this far and you're enjoying that Tech Yes content, then you know what to do. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out for now. Bye.